When dreams become reality, Sarah Chen wiped the sweat from her forehead as she examined the rock samples scattered across her makeshift laboratory table. The Canadian Rockies stretched endlessly beyond her research camp, their peaks catching the late afternoon sun like ancient spears thrust into the sky. After 3 months of geological surveys, she had found nothing more exciting than standard mineral deposits and limestone formations. Her team was scheduled to pack up tomorrow, another expedition ending in disappointment. The satellite phone buzzed against the metal table, its harsh ring cutting through the mountain silence. Sarah glanced at the caller ID and felt her stomach drop. Her father's voice was strained when she answered. "Sarah, I need you to come home. We're cleaning out your mother's studio, and I found something you need to see." She closed her eyes, fighting back the familiar wave of grief. Her mother, Dr. Alina Chen, had been gone for 6 months now, taken by a sudden heart attack that left the family reeling. Alina had been a brilliant theoretical physicist, but toward the end of her life, she had become obsessed with what she called resonance patterns, strange drawings that covered the walls of her private studio. "Dad, I'm in the middle of important research. Can't it wait until I get back next week? Sarah, please, trust me on this. You need to see these drawings. They're not what we thought they were." 3 days later, Sarah stood in her mother's studio. For the first time since the funeral, the room was exactly as Alina had left it, walls covered with hundreds of sketches, mathematical equations, and detailed technical drawings. But now, looking at them with fresh eyes, Sarah felt her breath catch in her throat. The central drawing dominated the far wall, a massive, crystalline structure with impossible geometric patterns. It looked like a fusion of organic growth and advanced technology, with flowing lines that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. Around it, smaller sketches showed different angles, interior layouts, and what appeared to be activation sequences. She drew this same structure for 20 years, her father said quietly, standing beside her. Always the same design, always the same proportions. I thought it was just her way of dealing with stress from work. Sarah approached the wall, her geological training kicking in despite her emotional turmoil. The rock formations surrounding the structure in the drawings were remarkably detailed and specific. The stratification, the mineral veins, the cave systems, they all looked familiar. "Dad, where did Mum say she got inspiration for these drawings?" She said they came to her in dreams. Always the same dream, night after night. She said she was supposed to find it, but she never knew where to look. Sarah pulled out her phone and compared the geological features in the drawings to her recent survey. Photos. The match was impossible to ignore. The rock formations her mother had drawn with such precision were identical to the ones Sarah had been studying for the past 3 months. "I have to go back," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Back where?" "To the Rockies." She drew the exact location where I've been working. "This structure. It's there. It has to be." 2 weeks later, Sarah stood at the entrance to a cave system her team had marked but never fully explored. The drawings were rolled up in her backpack, along with ground-penetrating radar equipment and enough supplies for a week-long expedition. Her team consisted of 3 people. Marcus, a cave mapping specialist, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a xenologist, and James, a technology expert who specialized in analyzing unusual artifacts. "Sarah, I have to ask," Marcus said as they prepared their gear, "what exactly are we looking for down there?" She pulled out one of her mother's drawings, showing the crystalline structure. "This, My mother drew it 20 years ago, and the geological markers match this location exactly. Dr. Tanaka examined the drawing with scientific curiosity. The mathematical proportions are fascinating. If this structure exists, it would require engineering principles far beyond our current capabilities. That's what I'm afraid of, Sarah replied. The cave system was more extensive than their initial surveys had suggested. They rappelled down 300 feet before reaching a stable floor, their headlamps creating dancing shadows on the limestone walls. The air was surprisingly warm and carried a faint electrical charge that made their skin tingle. This doesn't match our atmospheric readings from the surface, James said, checking his instruments. There's some kind of electromagnetic field. Down here, they followed a narrow passage that gradually widened into a vast underground chamber. Sarah's heart stopped when her headlamp illuminated the far wall. There, embedded in the living rock, was the structure from her mother's drawings. It was exactly as Alina had depicted it. A massive crystalline formation that seemed to grow from the cave walls like a technological coral reef. The surface was composed of some kind of translucent material that caught and refracted their light, creating rainbow patterns that danced across the chamber walls. That's impossible, Marcus breathed. The age of this cave system predates human civilization by millions of years. Sarah approached the structure slowly, her scientific mind trying to process what she was seeing. The surface was covered in intricate patterns that resembled both circuit boards and organic cellular structures. As she got closer, she realized the patterns were moving, shifting, and flowing like a slow-motion river of light. The electromagnetic readings are off the charts, James called out. Whatever this thing is, it's generating massive amounts of energy. Sarah pulled out her mother's drawings and compared them to the structure. Every detail was perfect, down to the smallest geometric patterns. But in the drawings, certain sections were highlighted in red, with notes written in her mother's handwriting, touch points, activation sequence. Sarah, don't even think about it, Dr. Tanaka warned, reading her expression. We have no idea what this thing is or what it might do, but Sarah was already moving toward the structure, drawn by an inexplicable compulsion. The surface felt warm under her palm, and the moment she made contact, the entire chamber filled with harmonic vibrations that seemed to resonate in her bones. Light exploded from the structure, not harsh or blinding, but warm and welcoming. The patterns on the surface began to flow faster, creating complex mandalas of color and movement. Then, impossibly, a voice spoke directly into her mind. Welcome, daughter of the dreamers. We have been waiting for you. Sarah jerked her hand back, but the connection remained. Images flooded her consciousness, vast space stations orbiting distant stars, beings of pure energy communicating through thought, and always, always, the same crystalline structures serving as bridges between worlds. What are you? She whispered. We are the keepers of knowledge, the last guardians of the galaxy's greatest library. Your mother was one of the few humans capable of receiving our transmissions. Through her dreams, we showed her our location, hoping that one day her legacy would lead someone here. Why? What do you want from us? The voice in her mind carried undertones of sadness and hope. Our physical forms have long since passed beyond the need for matter. But our knowledge, our history, our purpose, these things we preserve for those who come after. Your species stands at a crossroads. The path you choose will determine not just your survival, but your place in the greater community of consciousness. Sarah's team watched in amazement as she stood before the structure, her eyes closed, her face illuminated by the pulsing light. To them, she appeared to be in some kind of trance, but her vital signs remained stable. The knowledge we offer is not given lightly, the voice continued. Your mother understood this. She spent 20 years preparing, strengthening her mind, learning to bridge the gap between our forms of existence. But she knew the final choice would not be hers to make. What choice? Whether to awaken the network. This structure is one of 12 scattered across your world, each containing a fragment of our collective knowledge. Together, they form a gateway to understanding that would advance your civilization by millennia. But such advancement comes with responsibility. You would become guardians, not just of your own world, but of worlds yet to be discovered. Sarah opened her eyes and looked at her team. Marcus was documenting everything with his camera, while Dr. Tanaka was taking readings with every instrument. At her disposal, James was trying to map the electromagnetic field, his face lit up with scientific excitement. And if we're not ready, Sarah asked, then the structures remain dormant until another generation, another dreamer, finds the courage to choose. Your mother believed humanity was ready, but she also believed the decision should be made by someone who understood the weight of it. The light from the structure began to fade, and Sarah felt the presence in her mind withdrawing. You have time to decide. But know this, the choice, once made, cannot be undone. And others in the galaxy are watching to see what humanity will become. As the chamber returned to normal, Sarah's team rushed to her side. She was exhausted but exhilarated, her mind reeling with the magnitude of what had just occurred. Sarah, what happened? You were standing there for almost an hour, Marcus said. She looked at the structure, now dormant but somehow different, as if it were waiting. I think I just received humanity's first invitation to join something much bigger than ourselves. What do you mean? Dr. Tanaka asked. Sarah pulled out her mother's drawings one more time, but now she saw them differently. They weren't just pictures of an alien structure. They were blueprints for humanity's future, left by a mother who had seen further than anyone imagined. I mean, we have a choice to make. And I think my mother spent her whole life preparing us for this moment. As they prepared to leave the cave, Sarah made a decision. She would return to the surface, consult with the world's leading scientists and philosophers, and try to determine if humanity was truly ready for the responsibility. That came with cosmic knowledge. But deep down, looking at the dedication and curiosity of her team, she already knew what her mother would have chosen. The question was whether she had the courage to make the same choice. Humanity's greatest test 3 weeks after the discovery. Sarah stood before an emergency assembly of the world's leading scientists, philosophers, and government representatives. The chamber in the Canadian Rockies had been secured and studied, but the crystalline structure remained dormant, waiting for her decision. The implications are staggering, Dr. Rodriguez, the UN's chief science advisor, said as he reviewed the data. If this technology is genuine, it represents a leap forward that could solve every major crisis facing humanity: energy, climate change, space exploration, disease. Sarah nodded, but her expression remained troubled. The question isn't whether we can benefit from this knowledge. The question is whether we're ready for what comes with it. What do you mean? Asked Professor Williams, a renowned ethicist. According to the entity I communicated with, accepting their knowledge makes us guardians of other worlds. We wouldn't just be advancing our own civilization, we'd be taking responsibility for protecting species that haven't reached our level of development yet. The room fell silent. The weight of such responsibility was almost incomprehensible. And if we refuse, asked General Morrison, the military representative. Then we continue as we are, and hope that when we're ready, the offer will still be available. Dr. Tanaka, who had been studying the readings from the cave, spoke up. Sarah, I've been analyzing the electromagnetic patterns. The structure isn't just communicating with you, it's been subtly influencing the entire region. Plant growth is accelerated, water is purer, even the air quality has improved. This technology seems designed to heal, not harm. Sarah walked to the window, looking out at the cityscape beyond. Somewhere out there, 11 other structures waited in hidden locations around the world. The voice in her mind had shown her glimpses of them. One beneath the Sahara Desert, another in the depths of the Pacific Ocean, others in places so remote that no human had ever set foot there. There's something else, she said, turning back. To the group, the entity, they called themselves, the Keepers of Knowledge. They're not the original creators of this technology. They're refugees. The revelations sent a murmur through the assembly. Their galaxy is dying, Sarah continued. A cosmic event that happens every few billion years. They've been traveling between galaxies, preserving knowledge and helping suitable species evolve to the point where they can become the next generation of guardians. We're being offered a chance to join a chain of consciousness that stretches back millions of years. Dr. Rodriguez leaned forward. And if we accept, then we become part of something larger than ourselves. We gain access to knowledge that could transform not just our world, but potentially save others. The catch is that we also inherit the responsibility of preparing the next generation of species for the same choice. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some argued that humanity wasn't ready, that our history of conflict and environmental destruction proved we couldn't be trusted with such power. Others insisted that this was exactly the kind of challenge that would force humanity to grow beyond its limitations. Finally, Professor Williams raised a crucial point. Sarah, you're the only one who can communicate with this entity. What do you think your mother would have done? Sarah closed her eyes, remembering her mother's final words in the hospital. She told me that dreams were just reality waiting to be discovered. She said the greatest discoveries come not from seeking what we want, but from accepting what we're meant to become. And what do you think we're meant to become? Better than we are now. The vote was close, 53 in favor, against, but Sarah knew that ultimately the decision was hers alone. The structures would only respond to her genetic signature, inherited from her mother's unique neural patterns. As the assembly dispersed, Sarah found herself alone with her thoughts. The pressure was immense, but beneath it, she felt something else, excitement. This was why she had become a scientist, why she had spent her life exploring the unknown. She was standing at the threshold of humanity's greatest adventure. The next morning, Sarah returned to the cave with a small team of observers. The structure seemed to sense her approach, beginning to glow softly as she entered the chamber. She placed her hand on the warm surface and felt the familiar presence fill her mind. "You have decided," the voice said, and she could sense approval in its tone. "Yes, we accept the responsibility, but we have conditions. Speak them. We need time to prepare. Humanity is still learning to work together as a species. We need guidance on how to use this knowledge wisely. This is expected. Knowledge without wisdom is destruction. We will provide mentorship as you require it, and we want to maintain our independence. We'll accept your guidance, but we won't be controlled." The presence in her mind seemed to radiate something like amusement. Independence is not negotiable, it is required. Those who cannot stand on their own cannot support others. Sarah felt a warmth spread through her body as the connection deepened. Then let's begin. The structure exploded into light, but this time the illumination spread beyond the chamber. Throughout the cave system, secondary formations began to glow, creating a network of connected nodes. Sarah could feel the awakening of the other 11 structures around the world. Each one coming online in sequence. Images flooded her mind, vast libraries of knowledge spanning countless civilizations, technologies that seemed like magic, and most importantly, the stories of other species who had faced this same choice. Some had succeeded, becoming wise guardians of their regions of space. Others had failed, consumed by their own ambitions or destroyed by forces they couldn't understand. The first lesson, the voice said, is that knowledge is not power. Application of knowledge with wisdom is power. The second lesson is that you are not alone. Sarah felt her consciousness expand, touching the minds of beings across the galaxy. They were different, some energy-based, others mechanical, some so alien that she could barely comprehend their thoughts, but they all shared one thing in common: the desire to preserve and protect life in all its forms. "Welcome to the Guardians," the voice said. "Your first task is to choose your successor. My successor. The knowledge we offer is too vast for any single mind to contain. You will need to train others to spread the responsibility across your species. Your mother understood this. She spent 20 years preparing you, but she also prepared others." Sarah suddenly understood. The dreams hadn't been limited to her mother. Around the world, other sensitive individuals had been receiving fragments of the same visions, preparing them for this moment. She could sense them now. A network of human minds ready to accept their roles as humanity's first generation of cosmic guardians. "The structures will serve as training centers," the voice continued. "Each one will specialize in different aspects of knowledge, healing, technology, philosophy, exploration. Your species will learn gradually, earning each new level of understanding through wisdom and application." As the initial flood of information subsided, Sarah found herself changed. She could perceive patterns in the world around her that had been invisible before, understand connections between seemingly unrelated phenomena, and most importantly, feel the potential of her species in a way that filled her with hope. "How long do we have?" she asked. "Time is relative. The cosmic event that threatens our galaxy will not reach yours for millions of years, but the knowledge you gain here will prepare you for challenges much closer to home. Your species will face tests in the coming decades that will determine whether you survive long enough to become true guardians." Sarah opened her eyes and looked at her team. They were staring at her in wonder, but also with a new sense of purpose. She could see it in their faces. They had felt the awakening too, the subtle shift in consciousness that came with joining. Something greater. "What happens now?" Dr. Tanaka asked. "Now we get to work," Sarah said, feeling more confident than she had in months. "We have a lot to learn and even more to teach." As they prepared to leave the cave, Sarah took one last look at the structure. It was no longer just an alien artifact. It was a bridge to the future, a gift from civilizations that had faced the same challenges humanity now faced. She thought of her mother, of the 20 years Alina had spent preparing for this moment, without ever knowing if it would come. The drawings on the studio wall weren't just sketches. They were blueprints for humanity's transformation from a single-world species to guardians of the galaxy. Walking back toward the surface, Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settle. on her shoulders. But she also felt something else, the strength of her species, the curiosity that had driven them to explore every corner of their world, and the compassion that made them want to protect what they found. Humanity had always been at its best when facing the impossible. Now, with the knowledge of ages at their disposal and the wisdom to use it carefully, they would discover just how far that strength could take them. The Age of Guardians had begun, and it started with a daughter honoring her mother's dreams by making them reality.